Race 3 of the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. We're in Altenberg, Saxony in Germany, in the far southeastern corner of the country, close to the border with the Czech Republic. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me is Canadian slider Elizabeth Meyer, who raced this morning in snowy conditions. But Elizabeth, for the men's race, it looks as though a bit of light drizzle will add to the challenge of this Altenberg track.
Definitely. If the snow can hold off, that will make for a much better race, because racing in the snow is not fun at all. Altenberg here is very tricky, so a lot of people have kind of been struggling this week. And the start here is super, super long. It's flat, it's long. You just got to run as far as you physically can. And then the first 3 corners of this track are pretty slow. You want to do as little as possible, just gaining as much speed, just trying to get ready for the more difficult corners coming up. Corner 3 here will set you up nicely for corner 4 with the Omega, which is really difficult. You steer too little, you crash. You steer too much, you're slow. Coming into corner 5, corner 6 into the labyrinth. Again, you're just trying to maintain the speed that you've gotten through corner 4. Here into 9 is setting you up for the nice long straightaway into the very tricky Kreisel. You got to make sure that you steer enough, and you're going to wave a lot. You're going to see athletes getting close to that roof, getting close to kissing it, and then they have to relax into this little bit tricky 11-12 section. Into 13, it's a bit of an uphill section, and 14 will set you up for a nice big uphill section. So you're going to see some skidding, some hitting. You're nice into the last 2 curves. There's a lot of pressure, and you might see a couple big hits coming out in the finish line.
Well, I don't know who the guy who did our track camera was, but it was a nice clean run, not too many taps, no problems on the straightaway either. Track record set by Christopher Grote here when he won here 2 years ago. He's missed the first 2 World Cup races of the season, but he has returned. We've had 2 different winners this year. Can you guess who they are? They're tied for points at the top of the leaderboard. Alexander Chetikov and Nikita Tregebov have had a first and a fourth, and a fourth and a first each. Sunbin Young, the Olympic champion, lies third ahead of Martin Stukurz, the reigning world champion. And we have 25 sleds from 14 different nations in our field today, and 2 different winners this season, both from Russia. We had a Russian 1-3 in the women's race today as well. They were separated by the winner the last 2 years, Jacqueline Lerling from Germany. So the Russians going 1-3. Elena Nikitina claiming her 2nd win of the season, and indeed of her career. And Yulia Kinakina taking her first ever podium, and the first, I believe, in sliding sports for a ballet dancer as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because the 1st and 3rd, they've been here a lot. 3 years ago, they spent a lot of time here training with Willie Schneider, who's their old coach. So that's really paying off now.
Well, experience is everything in ice sliding, and particularly on a track like this where it's a real driver's track, isn't it? You can't just lie there and glide through the corners. You've got to get the steers absolutely nailed, and if you don't, we see it.
Yeah, definitely. Corner 4 can really hurt your time. You lose half a second there, and you're just trying to get as much back by the bottom of the track. As well as Kreisel, that one can be a bit of a bugger as well. It's too flat, then you're slow. Too wavy, it's not a good exit.
Well, you just saw the windmilling Axel Jung. 120 members of his fan club have driven in from Dresden, which is just about a 40-minute drive from here. Austin Florian of the USA, his 2nd ever World Cup start and his 2nd first out of the box. Something that Elizabeth can relate to, because we were just talking about that. That happened to you, your first 2 World Cup races as well.
Yeah, it's all luck of the draw for that first few sleds, so.
Yeah. All good stuff, and Christopher Grote here will go last. Race 3 of the Men's Skeleton World Cup. The USA's Austin Florian blasts off his first World Cup race here.
This is his first time here. I think he's only learned this track just this season from making the World Cup team. He had a great team trials and has been able to hold his own here.
From Southington, Connecticut, he's the North America's Cup champion, so that's the junior tier of sliding in the USA and Canada.
He's having some nice lines here, nice and clean into the labyrinth. He's not getting bumped down.
Well, he missed out on Sigulda, made his debut in a very different track, Winterberg, before Christmas. He was 19th there, field of 25, so he needs to be in the top 20 to get his 8th ever run down this track.
Nice nice and controlled at the bottom of the track. He had good pressures in Kreisel. Little bit of a tap there as you go into that uphill section. That is going to bleed you a little bit of speed.
But pictures of the women's race had snow all the way along by the walls. None of it here for the men. 57.89.
With a smidgen of sparks as he exited the final curve.
Yeah, the little metal bunk on the edge there that, quote, protects your shoulder, that digs into the ice, and yeah, there's no ice left now to dig in by the finish ice, so that's where the sparks come from, metal on concrete.
Here he is just going into corner 4. You're going to see that big toe drop to change the sled angle so that he's able to have a flat line on the exit. A little bit of a bump into 5, but as he chills into it, you see a little bit of body movement, but you're not seeing the scorpion that we might see today.
Yeah, so a lot of hits there in the women's race. A lot of big skids in corner 4 as well. Now, Alex Hansen of Norway struggling with full-blown flu. Missed the first day of training because he literally could not get out of bed. Coach Kristen Bromley holding the sled, who won the World Championships here in 2008, saying that basically if Alex can even get down to the bottom, then he'll be doing a stand-up job.
Alex is a quick starter here.
Yeah. That's probably all his energy now, fully drained. Let's see what he got, 5:19, so that's not his normal kind of starting pace.
Definitely his sickness is not helping him here.
Tiny little bit of drizzle misting across the track. That will end up eventually frosting the ice and slowing down. Bigger hit into 5 than we saw from the American.
Just a little bit of a bump on the entry of these corners as well, just trying to get back on your line.
If he can end up in the top 20 here, that will be not much shy of a miracle the way he's feeling, I think. Unfortunately, it means he'll have to do another run.
Definitely, and this is a lot of prep going into the World Champs that are happening here next year.
Well, he's only ever had 6 trips down this track in training, so this is run number 7 of his life. And that's why he had a really steady line through the Kreisel, just to make sure he didn't crash on the exit.
Yeah, and there's been a couple skids happening in the curves, which is going to bleed him a little bit of time.
Well, it was definitely safety first. Get down, don't get hurt. We're going to the European Championships next week in Koenigsegg, and that is something that will be much more relevant for him. So there's Phil Searle, quick change of jacket from the women's race, as he's got his Norway skeleton coat on now, goes down to help Alex with the sled.
Here we see exit 4, just that bump going into 5. Couple legs splaying all over the place, but he's okay. It's just, yeah, not the best.
Yeah. Well, he still looks like the Viking god Thor, doesn't he? But Alex Hansen probably feeling more sore than Thor. For years, there have been 2 Latvian sliders. Both of them had the surname Dukurs. This season, for the first time in the men's races in years, there's a 3rd Latvian man. It's 25-year-old Ivo Steinbergs. This is his 3rd ever World Cup race.
It's really awesome to see another Latvian coming up through the Dukurs legacy.
Well, he's raced here in Junior Worlds, in Europa Cup and in Intercontinental Cup, the 2nd tier of sliding, but this is only his 3rd year on ice, so he lacks experience everywhere.
Yeah, just a little bit of skidding coming out of the exit of 4 to make it a clean exit, but it is nice. 7,300s
down on Austin Florian. He's behind Alex Hansen of Norway at the moment. Decent exit out of Chudai down to the Kreisel.
Nice and straight. It's a little bit flat in Kreisel, so you're not able to gain as much speed as others will.
It's kind of a Dukurs style line there, actually, and that's who he's learning from.
And one of the Dukurs legacy is great form, and we're seeing that with him.
Well, he got into the sport by watching Martins in Sochi in the games in 2014 and thought, that looks easy. Apparently not. Said, I'm still trying to find out how he makes it look so easy. 60.05, so he's 3rd of our 3 sliders so far. With 25 in the field, only the fastest 20 go through. At the moment then, first man down, Austin Florian of the USA, is edging closer and closer to a 2nd run berth.
And Ivo did have a nice looking run. However, I think he was steering just a little bit too much, and you're not allowing the sled to kind of do its job and accelerate as much as possible. You do see his head popping up a little bit, but he is able to keep the sled pretty straight in that uphill section.
John Montgomery's great theory was that if you put a sack of potatoes or him on the sled that weighed the same, the sack of potatoes would beat him to the bottom because he would argue less with the sled. And he may have a point there. Fourth of our sliders in this third race of the Skeleton World Cup in Altenberg, Germany, is the second of our Latvians. This is Tomas Dūkurs, the 37-year-old older brother of the family. Sixth and fifth in the two World Cup races this year, which were at his home track in Sigulda in Latvia and in Winterberg just before Christmas. A couple of second places in Altenberg for Thomas over the years. 11, 12 and 14, 15. In both years, his brother Martins was the winner, as he has been 5 times in a row here.
Thomas has been coming back from a bit of a knee injury. He's had knee surgery this last summer and this summer, I think, as well. So he's trying to get back onto that form.
49,3 Kilometer pro Stunde.
That's a quiet corner 1 through 2 and 3, then into corner 4, looking for the good exit. Has a big hit, very on Dūkurs there.
Definitely, but I think they were struggling a little bit this year. They had 4 cameras in there on the final day of training, just trying to get a little bit of insight.
I spoke to Martins after Sigulda when you thought they might pull out all the stops to try and win, and he said, no, testing, testing, testing.
Definitely, and in this sport, you're always testing. He's a bit more loopy in that Kreisel, but he's controlled there. He knows what it feels like. He knows how to accelerate the sled.
Fastest so far at 107.9 kilometers now. 1:14.1 is 70.9 miles an hour. Full mile an hour, quicker than Austin Florian of the USA. So he does not take the lead. Wow, he's second, so the American needs 2 more sliders to drop behind him, and he's guaranteed a run in the second heat. Tomas Dūkurs not guaranteed a run in the second heat. Yet.
It's tricky. That corner 4, you can lose half a second from an exit like that, and that's just in that area. It doesn't compound even beyond that. It's more so much height on the exit here, just hits the build-up, and it just is like iced, almost like the corner. So
well, that's a crash, isn't it? 4 to 5. I mean, you know, we can paint over it any way we like. Yeah. He crashed from 4 to 5.
Yeah, he did have the scorpion out of there, which is not what we're used to seeing from the Dūkurs.
That's why they do so much stretching. Next up, a man making his 99th World Cup start. Alexander Tretikov, his fast World Cup here in 2004 started in 5:01. 14 years later, it's a 4:98.
And he is the start record holder here at 86. So it's a little bit slower, but I don't think the groove is as quick as it was then.
His first ever race here started 5:01, 1500s quicker than anyone in the field. He finished 37th in a field of 41 sleds in a World Cup race. 42nd and non-starting was Dirk Matchens, who's currently coaching for Germany. And boy, in those days, Tretikov started like he'd been fired out of a cannon and just hit everything on the way down. These days, much more the polished article.
Definitely, and he's having a very nice clean run here. He had a good 4.5, he's had a nice Kreisel, letting it wave, but still having control. Bit of a skid on the uphill, however, the sled setup that he's on kind of allows a little bit for that to happen.
Across the line, drifting through the line, 57.09. That's a second off the track record. It is drizzly, it has been snowing, it's a little bit warm, but that was a good-looking run from our joint World Cup leader. I'm not sure I've ever seen 2 people wearing yellow vests. We're going to see the next one right up after this.
Especially not from the same nation.
Yeah, well, maybe in the women's game, but...
Nice quick start here, what we're expected to see from Tretikov from so many years of watching him race. So close, he almost kicks his bumper as he hops onto his sled. You can see the sled wiggling a bit. Coming into that uphill section, he's gonna have a small skid, which we'll see a lot of, but controls it really nicely.
At the start, as you say, millimeters from the sled, no wasted energy. Alexander Tretikov, the leader, 5 down. Joint World Cup leader, also a race winner this season, is Nikita Tregobov. Clearly, we do not have 2 yellow vests for the World Cup leaders because he's tied on points. They both had a 4th and a win. 2 wins for Russia in men's skeleton, 2 now for women skeleton for Russia as well, both from the first and the third races of the season. Big skid in 4.
And so that's where he's getting that middle entry into 5. That is going to burn you quite a bit of time.
And look how far he is behind Tretikov already. 43 hundredths back, 21 hundredths at the start alone.
Nikita's a bit bigger guy, so he is going to accelerate a little bit at the bottom of the track.
Not quite as tall, but stockier, isn't he?
Yes.
Skidding everywhere, though. I mean, the sled is sideways everywhere.
In talking to Benny about here, with the runners that you need to ride is the least control that you can control.
Yeah. Let it fly across the line. Again, a skid off the final corner, drifting away. 5500s back. There's Sergei Chudanov. Chudanov finished, I think, something like 35th in Tretyakhov's first race. A couple of spots ahead of his teammate. 57.64. That's a huge margin to Alexander Tretyakov, and he's not going to find that.
Definitely. There is room for improvement in corner 4 because that is a big skid. A little bit of a power skid at the entry, just over the pressure.
Saw that a lot in the women's race, like they're taking the steer, but there's not enough grip to hold it.
Yeah, because the ice is a little bit slower than we've had in training,
okay.
So just when you steer, if it's just a bit too much, it is going to like pivot you. It's like dropping an anchor.
He's got the full racer's haircut going on, hasn't he? That's a new buzz cut over the Christmas New Year break. Russia 1-2. USA rookie Austin Florian lies third ahead of Thomas Dukurs as we get to Martin Dukurs. Well, Alexander Tretyakov may have started his 99th World Cup race, but Martin Dukurs in his 112th World Cup start today, from which he has no fewer than 50 World Cup wins. But he's sort of stuck there. His longest winning streak, by the way, 9 consecutive races. That's more than a full season. 5:01 the getaway, really answering Tretyakov's 4:98.
Nice and composed on his sled, as we expect from him.
Little skiddy in 4, better exit than his brother.
Yeah, a small bump on in the entry of 5 is no problem, but he doesn't have that speed that Tretyakov had.
Briefly pulled level, but 700s back as they come down to the Kreisel, just wriggling the hips a tiny bit to get the line on.
It's pretty flat in there, and it's really hard to accelerate, and a bit of a flop off of Kreisel as well.
Down almost 1 mile an hour on Tretyakov. The gap will grow. It's gone from 300s to over 310s, nearly 410s back. Tretyakov is in a world all on his own here. This is for second between Dukurs and Tregibov, and Dukurs is third by 300s.
He appears to be having the same of the skidding issues that we're seeing with the other athletes, but with a different setup, perhaps you can get away with it just a little bit more.
Everybody's trying to be as loose as they can on the sled, and it's all guesswork because, as you said, track conditions are very different always from training to the race.
Definitely. He's very flat in the corner. He's not even getting close to the roof, which is really hard to accelerate. And just a little bit of pickup on the end, which is seeing that flop and a tiny tap as he enters 13, which sends you a bit funky into 14. Not sure if he hit, but it would not. It's a little bit harder to recover.
So Russia 1-2, Martin Dukurs third, Austin Florian is fourth. Now here comes Ukraine's youngster, 19-year-old Vladislav Heraskevich. Never raced here in his life. This is only his 10th World Cup start. Now, he may have been hoping for a snow race because look at the size of him. He is an absolute beast.
He's got to be one of the biggest guys that we have on tour. His dad is his coach, and it was a former strongman as well, so that's definitely where he's getting his size from.
And that's where Vlad started as well. His dad spent a long time in strongest man competitions. Vlad started doing that MMA, boxing.
He had a little bit of a skid on the entry of 4, which flattens him, and that's where we're getting that nice entry into 5.
Right, at the moment, off the 8th best start, he drives himself into 7th. Look how wide he is as well compared to Seth. He overhangs on the shoulders by miles.
Definitely, his shoulders are hit, not his bumpers.
Big height in the Kreisel. What does it give him in terms of speed? 107.2. That's pretty decent.
It is, and like I said, having a little bit of waves in there can accelerate you.
Another great run down the straight from 14 to 15. 112.5, 69.9 miles an hour. That's about the 3rd fastest we've seen, and 6th at the line. Right behind Thomas Dukurs. Well, I say right, 7/10, but in position. So he's ahead of Alex Hansen and Ivo Steinbergs.
But this being his first race here, that was a very nice run. And again, it's all preparations for World Championships that are happening next year.
Yeah.
In Kreisel, he's letting that first pressure go, but because he's a bigger guy, the pressures get pushed in the corner. So he's not having to steer quite as much as the smaller ones.
Not having a panic there either, was he? Briefest of little tap dances on the exit, but he knew the exit was good. So there he is, 19 years old.
Competed in the Youth Olympic Games a few years back.
Yeah. Him and his father, quite the combination. Florian Auer now from Austria, the 9th of our 25 starters. 10th in Sigulda, 12th in Winterberg. Came here in the Junior Worlds in 2015.
He's had many runs here. He's starting to gel with his sled that he bought last year, which is a Willy Schneider sled.
Well, Sigulda, 10th place, his best ever World Cup result. Came into the World Cup first in Sochi a few years ago, sort of in and out since then.
Yeah, he's following his brother and his dad that both competed in the sport of skeleton, and his dad is still involved.
Christian Auer is one of the legends of the early years of men's skeleton, no question at all.
You can see his shoulders are a little bit off the sled, and that's kind of like taking your hands off the steering wheel. It's a little bit trickier to control the sled.
7th fastest at the start. This is a top 6 run at the moment. He's ahead of Heraskavich of the Ukraine. How close will he be to Martin Stukurs? Well, the answer is not that close.
Really big pressure there, which kind of sends you for a loop and a tap on the exit.
All right, 6th of the line, 58.39. And there is Matthias Guggenberger. Now, he's the man whose spot he's inherited, Florian Auer. So he is the, after his brother Alex retired at the end of last season, Florian is essentially their #1 slider in Austria.
Definitely. They have Sammy Meyer, my brother-in-law, coming up in the ranks as well.
Oh, yeah, your brother-in-law, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Yet another Meyer.
Pops out of that corner. You can see that the shoulder lifting, kind of trying to prevent like a tap in his skid. He's steering so hard so he doesn't get that final pickup coming into that long straightaway right before Kreisel.
Hello.
So there's Flo.
Hello, Mama. Hello, Therese and Olli on the dorm.
Mother and sister, the only members of that particular branch of the Meyer family that don't slide. Next up, with 120 fans trackside, is Dresden's Axel Jung. Last year, 8th place here. He was only the 3rd of 3 Germans. He was in a real slump at that stage. His history here, 4th, 4th, 3rd 2 years ago, and then 8th last year. He's also had podium finishes in the Intercontinental Cup, wins in Europa Cup, and he returned to form in Koenigsegg, Bavaria last year with his first World Cup win. Let's see what he can produce here.
And most recently, he just became German champion here as well.
5:05. Okay, that's a decent start. 35th World Cup start for Axel Jung.
You can see his toes just kind of dancing behind his sled. Nice low line coming into corner 5, which ideally it is a little bit more loopy to accelerate the sled as well.
All right, 3rd fastest at the start, still in 3rd place behind the 2 Russians. Let's see how close he can get.
Here's that loopy Kreisel that I was kind of talking about.
Oh, and a huge flop off the exit. It's a shame he had good speed going in, only Tretyakov faster, but now he's losing ground to Chegibov as well.
It's tricky, he's trying to find that balance here, and this is his home track, so he's not going to be pleased with that Kreisel.
Needs to find something in the last couple of corners to go second, no, 4th, 57.83. And that leaves him nearly 2/10 behind Martin Stukurs. I think he's feeling a bit of pressure with new coach Dirk Matchens in charge of the German setup. And he was really happy with his second run in Winterberg, but when he got off the sled after the first run, that was the body language we saw there as well. I think the pressure is breeding mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. That first pressure was really nice, but that second one bumped him off the roof, which then kind of gave him this little lip that we saw earlier as well. Bit of a big flop there.
Left him late in the 3rd pressure, and there's nowhere to go from there. Really annoyed with himself. Kilian von Schleinitz returns to World Cup action. This is only his 10th ever World Cup. He's been away for 2 years. His first World Cup appearance since February 2016.
He had a great result here last week, or 2 weeks ago in the German Championships, and that's why we're seeing him back on the World Cup circuit.
He was 9th in 2015 in his only World Cup race here. Kilian Freiherr von Schleinitz. Freiherr, by the way, is Baron von Schleinitz, just so you know.
Fancy.
Very fancy. It's a very old family name from deepest, darkest Bavaria. So he'll be home in Königssee next week. Lives in Schönau.
You can see a little bit of wiggling happening in the straightaway, trying to get that entry into Kreisel.
Controls the pressures much better, gets a much better exit, still in the red. And off a 5th fastest start, only a top 6 run at the moment. He needs a good performance here and next week to really cement himself into this German World Cup team.
I'm really seeing his shoulders kind of pop off the sled, which I'm not used to seeing with German sleds.
57.95. Well, that might make Axel Jung feel a little bit less suicidal, but top 6 for Kilian von Schleinitz. Brother Julian slides as well. He's a German luge slider. So whatever sibling rivalry there is, at least they carry it out in different sports.
Just a little bit of a tap there as he entered 13 and a bit late into 14, which is a really big struggle to keep off that wall into that upward straightaway, which is just bleeding speed a little bit.
That's right beside our commentary position as they start to climb over that brow. And if you're not straight and the sled goes light, you have a big skid. There's Kilian. First of our British sliders in the field, starting 12th of 25 is 26-year-old Marcus Wyatt. 7th World Cup for him. Last year's World Cup race here was his only ever appearance in Altenberg. Let's see what he can produce. 14th last year. 5 flat, good start.
2nd fastest start of the heat, so he should be pleased with that.
You can see why he was picked up very quickly here. Favourite athlete, Michael Schumacher. As many racing fans know, it was Michael's 50th birthday yesterday.
Just snuck ahead of Trechikov and back behind there. He had a bit of a bump coming into corner 5.
But only 200 slower than Trechikov at the start, only 600s back. Let's see what he can hold down the straight. Oh, just away from the wall. 2/10 back. This is a top 3 run from Marcus Wyatt of Great Britain at the moment.
You can see that right foot just kind of tinkling the ice at the exit to make sure he doesn't get that flop.
Down to 5th place. This is a bit like Laura D's run, in the top 3 to the Kreisel and then sagging and losing speed on the bottom parts of the track.
A bit later into 16 there, which gives you those big loops, 16, 17.
Oh, just outside the top half dozen up the line, but you 100th behind Kilian von Schleinitz. Can't argue with that on a German track. So 57.96, 57.95 for von Schleinitz. And last year, Marcus Wyatt 14th, currently 7th. That's the kind of improvement that Coach Eric Benotas wants to see.
Yeah. He doesn't quite skid the sled there and change the sled angle that we've seen others do. And here we go into this uphill section, those skids that we've seen so many people do. And maybe perhaps a little tap as he enters that curve.
Well, there's Marcus, Jen Bryant with the sled. And it is Alexander Trechikov and Nikita Treyubov who lead halfway through our first run in Altenberg. Lots of fans coming out on a snowy Friday afternoon to watch the 3rd race of the Men's Skeleton World Cup and to see the Olympic champion in the flesh. Last year, the winner here, Sunmin Jung, a Korea, one of 5 races he won out of 7 that he started in the World Cup. Then won that one in Korea after the season. Had a bit of knee surgery as well, surgery on both knees as well as the other official performances that he had to do after winning gold in his home games. The dream of every athlete, little slip there as he loaded.
He's a little bit off what he would want as a start, but like you said, he is coming back from knee surgery, and when I asked him this week how it's going, he said it's not going as well as they had hoped.
Olympic champion and World Cup champion. 33 World Cup starts to his name before today, 24 podiums and a 7-win record, so 72% podium finishing record.
That's a nice, yeah.
It's not that bad, is it?
And he's coached by Richard Bromley, who got engaged this Christmas as well.
Excellent stuff. Just behind Trechikov in terms of pace, but a quarter second back. 109.5, very quick indeed, as fast as the Russian. Here we go, he's not closing the gap yet though. 71.0 miles an hour compared to Tretyakhov's 72, so losing ground all the way at the line. Still second, but nearly half a second away.
He did have a nice clean run, but I think his start is probably going to affect him. That bit of a slip onto his sled.
Place at the moment.
Well, he started 1100s slower than Alex and came down nearly half a second slower, so the rule of 3 means he should have been about a third of a second away. But watch the slip. Yeah,
he just tries to get that one last step before hopping on the sled, and it just slips out from under his foot.
Tripped with his left leg, and then the right foot went away. Still wearing the Ironman helmet. Favorite track? All of them, he says. Next up, Jerry Rice of Great Britain, 28-year-old. Didn't race here in the World Cup before now. This is his 11th World Cup start.
He too is recovering from an injury that happened just as the season started.
Raced here in the European Cup when he was just starting out back in 2013, but that's a long while and a lot of miles on other tracks away.
Definitely, he had a small tap going into corner 2 there.
Big steer in 4.
Nice and parallel into 5, maybe a bit too controlled. Just trying to accelerate the sled as much as possible. And now before a race starts, they spray the track with water. So kind of as we're going down to these guys lower in the list, the track will have slowed down just a bit.
Oh, huge second pressure, massive skid! Plants it almost as heavily as Axel Jung there. He was really trying to hang on to it at the end of the Kreisel. And like ice skates or skis, when the runners on these things get sideways, they just stop you.
Yeah, it definitely does not accelerate, especially in those big curves when your sled is sideways.
All right, 12th at the line with a 59.44. But we know where almost all of that time went, and so does he. Behind Vladislav Heraskevich in 12th position, Jerry Rice. And I think we may see the Kreisel again, possibly.
He's going to Kreisel, doesn't control that first pressure, and as he hits that brim on the top, it's going to send him. He puts that anchor out, trying to save the exit, but it just is a big flop that ends up happening.
That third pressure should be while he's on the Kreisel, not as he's trying to come down the straight. So it's so late going in, means you're even later coming out. 15th of our starters is Weng Changgang of China. 23-year-old, won previous World Cup here. He was 23rd last year. This is only his 8th World Cup start.
Coached by Willy Schneider, who's had many runs down this track back in his sliding time.
Coached by Willy Schneider, head of the Chinese setup is Jeff Payne as well, who's had plenty of success on this track among others, but the Chinese athlete rattles from 4 to 5.
Just not enough control at the first pressure there, and that's why we're seeing that height on the exit. You can see his head is a really nice position, really close to the ice.
Best ever World Cup result remains his debut in Lake Placid in the tail end of 2017, where he finished in 7th, which I think shocked him more than it shocked anybody else. And we're all very open-mouthed. 12th place from a 12th place start.
He's skidding a lot on this run and taking a couple taps, and that's where we're seeing that time go.
59.09, little smile from Willy Schneider. Irrepressible optimist, Willy Schneider. So 12th out of 15 starters. Right now, Florian Austin, our first man out of the start shed, is 6th. So, first man on the ice, he had a great run. Never mind making the cut. He may well finish the day in the top 10, but look at this.
That's that entry to 5, not quite full scorpion, but is getting that. He's letting the Kreisel go, and when you get to that brim on the top, it really does redirect your sled, and that's where we're seeing that flop kind of flying out of Kreisel.
So there is Geng of China. Next up, 29-year-old Kyle Brown of the USA with Alexander Chetikov, Sunbin Jung and Nikita Tregibov, the top three. Olympic champions first and second here in Altenberg. Kyle Brown of the USA. Didn't race here last year in the World Cup. He's had a couple of Intercontinental Cup races here, though. This is his 9th World Cup start. For an American athlete, you'll be unsurprised to hear that his best result was in Lake Placid. Top 6 finish in January 2016.
Nice running onto the sled, made sure to push it far enough.
5:24, as you said, it's a long, flat start here. You've got to run it all the way to the lip, otherwise you just may as well not bother getting on.
Definitely.
Into 4, had a little steer out of 3. Oof.
Just a little tap, but I think he controlled it well enough to ideally accelerate the sled. But a small tap on the entrance of that labyrinth curve.
Well, 12th fastest start, 11th at the last split.
Runners are sideways there, and that's going to slow him down just a bit.
10th place into the Kreisel. Huge second pressure. In trouble on the thirds. Little flop, not a big one. Now, how much did he have to steer to get it off safely, and how much panic sets in there, Elizabeth?
Yeah, definitely. When you start to see the roof there, that's not an enjoyable time as an athlete.
Down from 10th to 11th place. And across the line in 11th, 58.66. Well, a lot of time went away there in the Kreisel.
Definitely. But Caleb Smith appeared to be happy, so I think he can be very pleased with that.
Well, again, very limited number of runs here for Kyle Brown.
Definitely. Both tracks in the US don't have Kreisels, so when we're coming to North America, it is a little bit trickier, or to Europe, it is trickier when we're in these Kreisels.
Yeah.
Getting real close to that brim of the roof, and the way the ice is, it really pushes you down aggressively.
And you can see from that slow-mo, you're actually starting to go inverted there. It's only centrifugal force stops you falling right off the ice. All right, so Kyle Brown, currently lying in 11th place. Top American is Austin Florian in 6th. Russia 1-2. Can Vladislav Marchenkov get in among the top 3? For the 22-year-old who has never raced here, that might be a bit of a tough ask.
Nice and relaxed as he's on his sled, heading into these first few curves, trying to accelerate the sled. Pushing a bit to the right there. A tap on the entry of 4 and a big steer there.
Ooh, and falls off into 5 anyway. This is only his 10th ever World Cup, so, you know, we're in the new guys here. The last 3 have got a total of fewer than 30 World Cups between them.
Yeah, it's kind of that next generation Russia.
Yeah.
Big steer on both pressures now. When you see that left leg coming out, it's because you're steering so hard with your other leg. He's just not quite as relaxed as the other athletes that we've seen.
Well, he's ahead of Gang of China at the moment, 13th on the splits. Where does he finish? Marchenkov in 13th place, 59 flat. So he's 13th, Geng 14th, Jerry Rice 15th, Alex Hansen 16th, and Ivo Steinberg 17th. So among them, quite possibly 2 or 3 of the last guys at the moment might not make the second heat, but woo.
There's that entry into 5 after that big steer in 4. And coming into Kreisel, you'll see that he puts his toe down on the right, but then it's so hard that his left leg is like bracing himself almost.
Yeah. That's real panic. Survival mode sets in, I think, there, doesn't it? Never mind the time, I just don't want to hit the wall on the exit.
Yeah.
18th of our 25 sliders here. Heat 1 in Altenberg is 28-year-old Ronald Oderset of Switzerland. Finished 20th last year. 22nd, 20th and 20th. His 3 World Cup results in Altenberg.
He's now coached by Ivo Pekans, and he's been having the best season of his career so far.
Yes, Agulda saw his best World Cup result ever, 15th finish.
Beste Zeit hier und 50 Kilometer
And this
pro
is
Stunde.
Ronald's 29th World Cup start. So next week in the European Championships, it'll be the landmark 30th.
Really nice exit into corner 5 there. Maybe a bit too controlled. Nice and chill on his sled. His feet are together. Heads down. see the sled dancing a little bit as his shoulders do lift off the sled. A little bit of a flop off Kreisel, but nothing like we've seen some of the other athletes.
This is a top 10 run at the moment off the 5th fastest start.
Really nice exit there. Kept down that right wall, which puts you nicely in.
Little late onto 15, but 11th at the line, 58.54.
And a smile out at his coach, Ivo Pekals, and I think Ronnie can be really pleased with that run.
Yeah, especially with that start. 5th fastest start, 5:08. That's a 10th behind Alexander Chetyakov.
Definitely, and being 18th off the top does not help that either.
Yeah, he's starting to find his start speed again, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Little bit of a flop kind of tap there. And he just comes off of 9 just a bit too soon, and that's where that flop comes from. See, his shoulders kind of dancing just above the sled, and that's where that tiny skid comes from.
Well, head up a little bit there, still not quite as secure here maybe as he wants to be. 19th of our starters, Greg West of the USA, 33-year-old, is the reigning US champion. This is Greg's 13th World Cup start, so that's 99 fewer than Martin Stukur's.
Crazy.
Just, you know, I mean, let's put this into perspective. He's had 2 Europa Cups here and the World Cup last year where he finished 22nd. Now watch his fingertip start.
Very unique.
Yeah. What gives him a little bit more length to the arm, so he's sprinting a fraction more upright, and this is a sport of fractions, right?
Definitely, 100th here and there all adds up by the bottom of the track, so that 3-finger start is, he's the only one in the field that does it.
In the middle of a new spray job on the helmet, so at the moment it's just plain blue. We'll have to see how that develops over the next few weeks.
Lots of height there on the exit of 4, but appears to have controlled it well. See kind of the flops happening off these labyrinth corners. There's another flop into a bit of a skid.
Trying to get himself a little bit to the left going into the Kreisel.
But again, this race is a lot of preparation for next year for World Championships, getting us North Americans on this track and getting those runs in.
Decent exit from 16th fastest at the start. He's still 16th, wrestling it a little bit down from 14 into 15.
You can see that right elbow just peeking out, which could mean that his hand can't quite get under his leg.
58.88 for Greg West. So that puts him 14th at the line from 16th at the start. And if you look at his video, actually quite often he's got the right shoulder up a fraction, the right elbow out a little bit. Maybe that's just the way he feels most comfortable.
Definitely. He just showed the camera corner 4 with his fingers, and it does just bump him. That leg is going to go a little bit floppy. It is a tricky, tricky corner to deal with. Coming out of that corner, he's got his shoulder really, really high, and that's exactly where that skid comes from.
Yeah. So Tuffy Latour with the sled. $19 down, 6 to go. Let's see who's going to make the field. Kevin Boyer of Canada wasting no time as he gets away to start his 18th World Cup race.
Altenberg is one of his favorite tracks on tour. He loves the sound and loves this place.
He's done a couple of World Cups, a couple of Europa Cups and Junior Worlds here as well. He was 15th in last year's field. Ooh, skidding it all the way through 4 though.
Definitely. He's been struggling a lot in corner 4, but that's a much better exit than we've seen all week, so I think he'll be very pleased with it.
Well, this track marks one of his best results last year, 15th. He's had 2 top 12 finishes in Winterberg and Whistler. Track's more different, it's hard to imagine, but whoa, wild on the exit.
A little bit of a flop there, but he's learning a new sled. He got a brand new sled this year at Duke Cruise, so he's trying to gel with that in preparation for the next 4 years.
10th fastest at the start and the 19th fastest on the splits at the moment. And across the line, 20th place, might be in danger of not making the heat. So a 60.07. About half the women's field in the snow were doing 60.0 something. So that was not the run that Kevin Boyer wanted.
No, he's not going to be stoked with that. Really letting that first pressure go, perhaps a bit too much. And then on these last few pressures, he's just skidding, just trying to save that final bit, and that leg is coming, and there's a bit of a flop.
So easy to roll it off there. So Boyer in 20th place. The race is full, 5 to go, and now Kevin Boyer's teammate has to bump him out to make the race. Alexander Chetikov, Sun Bin Young and Nikita Tregibov, the top 3 in the first heat. New daddy Dave Kreszczeshin of Canada, I'm sure would like to say hi to his wife Jess and baby daughter Aurelia, who was born just at the Christmas break. I don't know how much sleep he had at home, but he's probably had a little bit more here. 5:34 getaway.
And he wanted me to give a shout out to Jess because she was a rock star during all of it.
And every mother is. Listen, we do the easy bit. We do the hand-holding. It doesn't matter how many bones get crushed, it still doesn't compare.
A little bit of a flop there going into corner 5.
At the moment, ahead of Kevin Boyer, his teammate. One here in the Europa Cup, so he has got good experience on this track. This is about his 6th or 7th race here.
And that was really nice steering by Dave. He's got his feet together, just quick toes here and there. That's really great.
107.2, not the greatest speed, but he's moving very well up the order. 19th fastest start. He's 11th on the splits. This is a top 10 run.
Awesome.
And across the line, just outside the 10 by 0.05 of a second behind Florian Auer. 11th for Dave Kreszczeshin. So, I don't know what time she was woken up this morning, his wife Jess, but I'm sure she's been awake a lot earlier than she's used to, even for watching her husband compete.
Now coached by Sarah Reed, who's waiting for the sleds at the bottom, but Dave made sure to pump the sled just a bit further. Coming out of 4 here, just a little bit extra height, so he's a bit of a tap, but I'm assuming kept his form well to accelerate the speed.
A little bit legs akimbo at the top of the track, but Dave Kreszczeshin, a whisker out of a top 10 in the first heat.
Nice line out of 14 there, really nice.
Love you guys, Jess and Aurelia.
Oh, I thought you meant us. Come on, Chris.
Darn.
Love you too, sweetie. So he's in, Kevin Boyer is out, and now on the bubble in 20th place is Ivo Steinbergs of Latvia. Jack Thomas, it's now go fast or go home time for the 28-year-old in his 16th World Cup race. He's raced here in Europa Cup, in Intercontinental Cup, and in the World Cup. Didn't race in last year's World Cup race here, but the year before, he was in 15th place. His best World Cup result to date. So if he can have a similar race to that with another couple of years' experience, then he could be knocking on the doors of the top 10 as well. See the rain on the camera lens. It's really windy around the top of this Altenberg start area, despite the roof.
Definitely. Really close running to his sled there.
Got a great style at the start. Let us see, what, 5:15? That's a pretty decent getaway. Dave Kreszczeshin made into 11th off a 5:34.
See that left toe dancing a little bit. Get a nice entry into 3.
Nice form in 4 to 5.
Little bit of a tap there on the entry, but not too bad at all.
All right, but there's too much control. 10th fastest at the start. He's already down to 16th on the splits. He's going the wrong way. 20th place on the splits. He's not going to make the second heat unless something radical happens at the bottom. He's got too much control of the sled.
It's really tricky because when you're learning your lines here, you need the control, but to go quick, you need to push that limit a bit.
Yeah. 21st place, out of the race at the moment. Back into 20th place. It's him or Ivo Steinbergs of Latvia in the final corner. At the line, in or out, he's in. 59.46 by the skin of his teeth.
And just ahead of Alex Hansen as well.
Yeah, so Kevin Boyer is out, Ivo Steinbergs is out, and Alex Hansen is on the bubble with Jack Thomas not safe yet either.
That was a really pretty run. See, like, he's really close to his sled as he loads, not losing any energy as he hops onto the sled. Coming out of 14 here into that uphill section, head is nice and low. Shoulders are kind of dancing a little bit, but staying on the sled.
All look very smooth, but if you haven't got the speed there, it's because he's got a slightly too conservative rocker on the runners. Manuel Sferza of Italy now, 23rd of our 25 starters. His 8th World Cup, half as many as Jack Thomas, who's just preceded him. 22-year-old started in luge, though, so he's got ice time before he came into the sport.
Really early into corner one.
A 48,4
A 5:37 getaway leaves him 4/10 off the pace, even before he breaks the 50-meter barrier.
With the toes dancing and his elbows coming out, it's a little bit tricky when you're on this track and you're a less experienced slider to keep that form and to chill. That's something I definitely struggle with here.
Like teammate Valentino Margaglio, making the cut will be absolutely a reward here. From 22nd at the start, he's in the field in 20th.
Big flop out of Kreisel, but doesn't hit on that right side.
Ooh, big height, 19th, ahead of Jack Thomas. So at the moment he's in, Alex Hansen of Norway is out.
Lots of skating happening, but perhaps his setup is able to allow that.
Up to 18th. He carries a lot of mass, this young man, and across the line, 18th place, a 59.10. That might be enough to get him into the second heat. Kevin Boy is out, Ivo Steinbergs is out, and Alex Hansen now joins them with the fans trackside. Don't know if Manuel actually had his helmet strap done up there, but either way, as you can see, not quite as big a unit as Vladislav Heraskevich, but he is a big guy for just 22 years old. Too big for luge, I'd have said.
He gets a little bit of air there on the exit of the corner. Nice and early in, but that corner really whips you. That's a ton of height. You see that toe dragging, head up, trying to prepare you for 14 a little bit better.
Big skid through there as well, but he's in the race at the moment with 2 to go. And he has got 2 British sliders behind him, so he should make the heat. Next up, making his World Cup debut, Mihai Pachianu of Romania. The 20-year-old has had 2 Europa Cup weekends here.
He's that next generation of Romanians as well.
Yeah.
He competed in the Youth Olympic Games a couple of years ago. He's on a Schneider sled and starting to kind of get the feel of that.
He's competed in the Junior Worlds, and we saw him in the World Championships a couple of seasons ago. But only 2 seasons of Europa Cup racing and 2 Intercontinental Cup races under his belt, so really lacking in experience.
A little bit of skidding, a little bit of kind of dancing on the sled.
So excited to be here. Mum and Dad help him coaching during the summer. He said he'd slide in his sleep if he could. Well, 10th fastest start is a great way to start, but look at the way his head is up. He doesn't know the lines here. He's just surviving to try and get down in one piece.
Definitely, and especially here, the people that are most relaxed are the ones that are able to accelerate.
So 60.11 at the line, and that leaves him in 24th position, but makes his World Cup debut here in Altenberg in Germany. Well, if it's any solace to him, on his first World Cup race here, Alexander Chechikov finished 37th. The worst that Mihai is going to do will be 25th potentially.
A little bit of a flop and skid as he's getting ready to go into Kreisel. And you can see his head and his shoulders a little bit higher, and that is like taking your hands off the steering wheel. It is trickier to control the sled.
Looking for the line all the way down, but welcome to World Cup sliding. Good to see him here. Final slider, welcome back for Christopher Groothair, who got himself injured right at the beginning of the pre-season. The 26-year-old making his first World Cup start of the season. Finished in a bronze medal position in last year's World Cup race here. He won the year before, so he is on a strong vein of form. In fact, he broke Martin Stukur's run of 4 consecutive races and stopped him getting a 5th at this track.
Like you said, he is recovering from an injury. Bit of a slip on the start. He kind of just missed his hand position there. An 11th place start, I'm sure he'll be pleased with that coming back from an injury.
5:15 getaway. So let's see if he can drive himself close to the top half dozen.
Really nice entry there. The Germans have had so many runs here. They're able to relax a lot more than the average slider.
Well, he's moving up into 9th place. That means Jack Thomas of Great Britain will not get a second slide. 7th place on the splits. This could be top half dozen. The top German is Axel Jung in 5th place, 7,400s back. Christopher Groothaar is already on target to beat him. 6th on the splits at the moment. This is going very well for Groothaar. 4th place now. Could it be top 3? Is he going to catch Nikita Tregebov for 3rd place after the first heat? At the line, 5th. It drifted away a fraction, but that is a great run. His first time out this season in the World Cup. Shakes his head a little bit. He's 6/10ths back. 200s behind Martins Ducours. 500s out of the medals. We've got a battle for bronze at the very... In fact, we've got a battle for silver. He's 1100s off Sung Bin Jung in silver.
He threw it down. Being the last competitor off the top of the hill is really tricky because the ice isn't as slick as the others have seen. Here he goes onto his sled. You're going to see his hand just miss the saddle. So he's kind of having to... that would actually hurt.
Right in the sternum, yeah.
Right in between those ribs. And now having to relax for the rest of the run.
Yeah, with his chest going, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah.
Great run from Christopher Groothaar, but top draw performance from Alexander Tretyakov. Back in 2004, the fastest starter with a 5:01. He went away in a 4:98 today and finished not 37th, but first in the first heat with a 57:09.
Fastest start and fastest down time. He had a really clean run. With a little bit of skids, that is equipment allowed for.
14 years ago, he finished in a 62:69. He's 5.6 seconds quicker. Alexander Tretyakov leads. Olympic champion versus Olympic champion. Sung Bin Jung 2nd. Nikita Tregebov 3rd, ahead of Ducours and Groothaar. They are definitely in medal contention. Behind Austin Florian of the USA in his 2nd ever World Cup race, lying in 7th place. Wow. That was a great first run from him. Missing the cut, Jack Thomas, Alexander Hansen, Ivo Steinbergs, Kevin Boyer, and our rookie first-time slider, Mihai Pakianu of Romania. Join Elizabeth Meyer, me, Martin Haven, and the rest of the IBSF TV crew as the sleds come back on ice at 3:30 local time. That's 14:30 GMT. Wherever you are, we'll be here with all the action. Please join us. Until then, auf Wiedersehen from Altenberg.